Celtic were back in action last night and unfortunately dropped points. We will discuss the fallout from that match whilst going over all the latest Celtic news from the last 24 hours. But first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers has reacted to Austin Trusty's performance against Dundee at Dens Park. Trusty ultimately played a part in 2 of Dundee's 3 goals in one of his poorest performances of the season. The USA international never appeared comfortable in the game, with Simon Murray and Oluwaseun Adewumi causing him problems all night. With Murray in particular not giving Trusty any time or space on the ball. It was certainly a night to forget for Trusty, and with Kilmarnock at home in the Scottish Cup on Saturday, Celtic supporters may see Liam Scales return to the starting team, given the manner in which Dundee were able to continually pressure Trusty. For much of the season, Trusty hasn't put a foot wrong, with his performance against Atalanta in Bergamo to seal a clean sheet away from home in the Champions League, really showing what he can bring. However, over the last month he has shown signs of slowing down, and in the middle of a heavy fixture schedule, is struggling, with Rodgers not holding back in his criticism of Trusty post-match. When asked, was Trusty unsettled for the 3rd goal, he said, "Clyde won super scoreboard. He's got to deal with that better. You've got to stay on your feet. He's 6'4". You've got to deal with that better. It's as simple as that." He knows that. He understands that. That's what I'm saying. Across certain areas, we went a bit soft. Trusty simply never got to grips with the pitch at Dens Park, and the high press from Dundee under Tony Docherty. The D's are aggressive in how they play. Domestically, Trusty hasn't really faced a team like Dundee on their day. They have proven a match for anyone over the past 18 months, with Dens Park in particular becoming a tough place for opposing teams to earn points. With a huge week ahead for Celtic, time out of the starting effing may be just what Trusty needs to re-find his form and recover from a disastrous performance in Tayside. Now for the main story, as former Celtic striker Chris Sutton reacted to the Hoops' 3-3 draw against Dundee at Dens Park tonight, with a late Arne Engels penalty securing Celtic a 90-plus 3-minute point. Celtic caused all their own problems, with Austin Trusty consistently struggling against Dundee's aggressive press, while Celtic's midfield failed to cope with Mohamed Silla and Cesar Garza. Despite Brendan Rodgers bringing on Arne Engels and Reo Hatate in the second half, if anything, it only pushed the game further in Dundee's favour. Sutton said, "Dundee, as gutsy as they come. Well played Tony Docherty and his team. Celtic, too many players off the boil, and after Dundee went 3-2 up, never really looked like equalising. Maybe a valuable point at the end of the season. Fair play to Engels with a cool penalty. Great match. Luke McCowan did start the game well and looked positive for much of the first half, scoring an early goal against his former side just 5 minutes in after a Greg Taylor cross. However, alongside Paulo Bernardo, they ultimately lost control of the middle of the park towards the end of the first half, with Celtic never really regaining any authority. Bernardo himself had 2 chances to score in the game, the first coming in the first half to put Celtic 2-0 up, and the second in the second half to put Celtic back ahead. However, having not started after his performance against Rangers at Ibrox on January 2nd, he failed to impress. Engels stepped up when it mattered most to send Trevor Carson the wrong way from the penalty spot. Despite Celtic's record signing struggling to get to grips with the game off the bench, he proved that when Celtic needed him, he could deliver, scoring 2 goals from the spot in just 3 days. Dundee do deserve credit for the way they played. They ran Celtic as close to defeat as they possibly could. With much made of Dyson Maeda and James Forrest missing the game, Dundee themselves are in the middle of an injury crisis, showing that Tony Docherty is really getting the best out of the D's. Come the Premiership split, you certainly wouldn't bet against Dundee being in the top 6 given tonight's impressive display. In other news, Brendan Rodgers has addressed Adam Ida's decision to go down the tunnel at Dens Park after being substituted. Ida did not have his best performance against Dundee tonight, failing to score a tap-in from a superb Kyogo cross in the first half. The Irishman failed to match the standards he set last season while on loan from Norwich City. He proved to be a match winner off the bench last year in guiding the Hoops to a League and Cup double. However, with his last goal for Celtic coming on November 30th against Ross County at Celtic Park, he is going through a goal drought despite starting the Hoops' last 4 games. It's not exactly been what you'd expect from a reported £9 million summer signing, with the hope that Ida would really push Kyogo to start this season. However, that simply hasn't materialised in the first half of the season. Instead, the Irish striker seems to have moved backwards. which is a worrying sign for Rodgers and Celtic supporters. With some questioning whether Ida had an injury, Rodgers spoke about the reasoning behind Ida wanting to go to the dressing room instead of sitting on the bench with the substitutes. When asked, did he go straight to the dressing room? Adam, was he injured? He said, no, he went to get something warmer. Did you see him come back? He came back. A spiky reaction from Rodgers, to say the least. The Celtic boss is unhappy, with some looking to create a situation from Ida's reaction to being substituted. However, it is not commonplace for players to go straight up the tunnel. The manner in which Ida clapped the travelling Celtic support shows that he is not throwing his toys out of the pram and was, instead, as Rodgers says, feeling the cold. In other news, Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers has reacted to the Hoops 3-3 draw against Dundee at Dens Park tonight. With Celtic twice taking the lead, a lack of control in the middle of the park in the second half meant the boys were unable to control the game, and a number of defensive errors allowed Tony Docherty's side to take the lead. However, a late Arne Engels penalty salvaged a draw. The Hoops may have felt they should have been out of sight, with missed chances from Adam Ida and Paulo Bernardo giving Dundee the momentum to find their feet in the game, despite Celtic taking the lead just 5 minutes in through Luke McCowan. Celtic ultimately squandered the chance to go 18 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership, with a number of defensive weaknesses beginning to become apparent. A balance in the middle of the park also appears to be a problem, with the Hoops hoping to bring players in before the January transfer window closes at the end of the month. New signings to improve the team cannot come quickly enough. Despite such a strong lead at the top of the table and the Premier Sports Cup already to their name, Celtic have shown that there is room for improvement over the last month. With the busy winter period not helping, the Hoops will be desperate to secure a place in the Champions League knockout playoffs next Wednesday and progress to the next round of the Scottish Cup on Saturday against Kilmarnock at Celtic Park. Celtic boss Rodgers was rightly critical of the draw, which certainly flattered the Hoops after a disastrous second-half performance. He said, "We were too passive, too slow, with the ball just not aggressive enough. Tonight was about doing the basics of the game well, and we did not do that well enough." Ultimately, it was a point gained rather than two dropped, with Dundee leading for the last 15 minutes of the game before a late penalty bailed Celtic out. However, to take the lead twice, first just 5 minutes in, and then concede a goal just before halftime and another a minute after retaking the lead early in the second half shows just how below par Celtic proved to be tonight. Celtic fans, what are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let us know down in the comment section below. That does bring us to the end of today's video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Thank you,